Hello and welcome back, guys. In this video, we'll try to understand what auto keyword is in C++. It is also commonly used in ROS-based C++ projects. For instance, if you see this piece of code, this is taken from ROS2's official tutorial where they are making a ROS2 client node. Here you see that they've been using auto in different places. Now, as I said, let's start understanding what auto keyword is. Since it is a C++ concept, we will focus on only C++ and not ROS per se in this video. But the idea is of course used in ROS because it is in C++. So let's start understanding what auto is. This video will have two parts. Part 1 will be about understanding what auto is, and we'll just write very simple examples in C++. This part will be super simple. And part 2 will be a discussion on the usage of auto and the importance of it. Okay, auto is a keyword to automatically deduce types of variables when you're writing code in C++. So C++ was always a strongly typed language, but with the introduction of the keyword auto in modern C++, it kind of became like a weakly typed language where we can use auto instead of types for variables and data. For instance, instead of string, integer, any class, pointer, structs, you can just have the keyword auto. Let's look at this right now. So here you have two variables, A and B. A is of the type integer and B is of the type string. This is simple, right? This is what we expect. But in modern C++, we can replace the data type with auto. So now we've replaced the data types with auto and it'll still work. So as I said, instead of data types, you can use auto to automatically deduce the type of variable. So here, if you compile, you can see that when you're hovering here, it says int A and constant char pointer B. So C++ compiler has automatically deduced the data type. The idea of auto is pretty simple now, right? You can also have a function or a method returning something, and then you can also use auto there. For instance, let's say main is your client side and the API getName is exposed to the client side. So here you can use getName to get this value. Okay, so this function is returning data of the type std string. So if you hover here, it is automatically deduced because we are calling this function. Now the good thing is, if there's something minor which changes here and your data type changes here, the client, in this case this line, doesn't need to know about it. So that's a good thing because you don't need to make any changes in your client side. Everything is fine. But this can become a slippery slope as well. Because let's say something changes in your driver file and then your data type changes a little, your client will not know about it because you're using auto, and then maybe down the line that can cause any issue. So that is where it can become a problem. Now this actually led us to part 2 already, because the idea of auto in general is pretty simple. Talking about where auto should be used and the importance of it, I personally do not like to use auto everywhere in the code, because looking at what auto can do, we can ask, hey, can't I use auto everywhere instead of having data types, right? Because that is simple, we don't need to think about it. Well, technically you can in most cases, unless the code is so complicated that you actually cannot. But the problem is it can become a slippery slope where you don't really know what's happening in your code. Let's say you have a big code base, and then if you use auto everywhere, you would not really understand what's happening in the code. And then let's say you want to debug something, it'll become a huge mess. Also, I think auto should not be used everywhere just because you can. There are cases where auto is actually really useful, and let's talk about one of the cases. Now let's say you have a string vector here. This is one of the ways to loop and then print out all the values in your vector. Of course, you can say that this type of looping is not commonly used in C++ anymore, but let's not get into that. Right now, just for this scenario, let's say that this is the code we want. So you have your iterator, which is a long data type. That is where auto can come in, because there is no harm in replacing this with auto. This is not leading to any confusion. So I think this is a good use case of auto. So if we compile this, we see 1 and 2, and that is what we wanted. This is something I would like, but I would not use auto anywhere and everywhere just because I can. So auto is useful for convenience where you do not want to have a long data type, and then you can just replace it with auto. You can also use it here and there if you want, but as long as your code clarity still remains and then you're not doing it just because you feel lazy, it is a good thing to do. I personally don't like to use auto much unless it is needed, like the case where we're using an iterator. And now, based on this, let's again look at the code we saw in ROS. Here you see they've used auto for request. So what they're doing here is they need to make a data structure which comes from add to win service and then request. If they don't use auto, they will have a long data type. So they've just replaced it with auto so that it is convenient for them to write. This line is trivial so that there will be no confusion in the code base. You also see another line for result. They've done the same thing because otherwise they will have to write the data type, and it's just convenient here. So I think that this is a good case where you actually want to avoid typing long data types, and that is where I usually use it the most. Of course, in my opinion, auto is kind of a contentious point in modern C++, where some people try to use it a lot and some people don't. You can feel free to disagree. I would love to know what you think, but personally, I don't like code bases filled with auto. And from our conversations with experienced programmers, they also agree that auto should not be used anywhere and everywhere because it can effectively be misused. It just reduces readability, and then developing and debugging using the same code base just becomes harder and harder. So that is why I say that auto should be used with caution, only where it is giving you an advantage. So that was about it. This was mainly a C++ video and not a ROS video, but we also discussed how auto was used in the official example itself from ROS2. So I hope this video made things a little more clear, and then I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.